Hey guys, what is up? It's me here in November with islandofpsa, Island of Psychiatric Survivors Advocates. So today I thought I talked about what is like in an inpatient psychiatric hospital. There are other videos on YouTube, but I just thought I'd make my own version. So I've been hospitalized, I believe, 25 to 26 times. I have the exact number somewhere ever since I was 14. I'm 22 now, but I've been out of the hospital for almost a year. But I just wanted to talk to you guys about what it's like at an inpatient psychiatric hospital. So when I first hospitalized in 14, I live in Atlanta. I was hospitalized at a hospital called Summit Ridge, which declined in quality. But the first thing I did was I did something called, I'm going to explain how I got into the hospital, and then I'll explain what to expect. So I got in kind of a weird way. I was actually doing something called partial hospitalization program for, and let me put a trigger warning out here for cutting, suicide, ideation, suicide attempt, stuff like that. But I was cutting myself and I was suicidal. Well, I made a suicide note and I had a plan. So that Friday from partial hospitalization program, they put me in inpatient. So what is inpatient? Inpatient is when PHP is like a therapy all day. Inpatient is when you stay overnight. So let me explain how there are ways to get inpatient, and then I'll explain what to expect. So the ways to get inpatient are either from what I call the regular hospital, the ED, a therapist 1013s you, or they come out to your house, or you go in person. So ED, or emergency department, is if, let's say, you're suicidal or you overdose on pills or whatever, you go to the emergency department. In Georgia, they call it 1013. Don't know where they call it in your state, but basically, that's an involuntary psychiatric hold, and I don't know all the logistics of it, but I do know that you have to be mandatory 72 hours, excluding holidays and weekends. People are rarely there 72 hours. You guys, it's usually like a week to 2 week stay. And this is short term, by the way. This isn't long term. Okay, so the emergency department, what they'll first do is, if you're a mental health patient, and if you come there for mental health issues, at my emergency department, they put you in the psychiatric emergency room, which is like, first they do all the emergency room stuff. They take your blood, urine, do an EKG sometimes. Doctor comes in, the doctor decides if he wants 1013 or you or not. And then a therapist comes in and they talk to you about what your problems is and find a hospital that'll best suit you. So then that usually takes between 24 to 48 hours. One time it took a week for me, but that was an outlier. So from 24 to 48 hours of you walking into the ED, you're at a hospital. So then they have to find a place that has a bed open. And while they do that, they transfer you at the hospital I get to, which I don't want to mention the name. They transport you to because it's right by my house. Like 10 minutes. They transport you to it's like a psychiatric holding area is the best way I know how to explain it. Basically, it's weird because at this hospital, there's just chairs, recliners, and then there's a TV, and it's like an open area room. Like, there's just a curtain. It's not a door or anything. So a psych nurse is there, psych tech is there, but they don't treat you. They just are holding you until you get to the psychiatric hospital. Another way is if a therapist 1013s you. So if you're in therapy and you say you want to harm yourself or others, they'll 1013 you. Okay. Let's see. ED therapist. If you call 911 and they come out to your house because you overdosed, you go to the ER by ambulance. It's the same way you go to ER. Another way, which I don't even know if Summit Ridge does that. Hold on. I will get that later. Okay, so I don't even know if they do that anymore. But Summit Ridge, you can walk in and say, I'm suicidal. I'm hearing voices that tell me to kill myself. I feel like killing myself. You know, they'll admit you either partial hospitalization, inpatient, or you go home. Okay. All right. So now you are in the process of getting to the psychiatric hospital. Now, what happens? So when you get there, you will be put in the admissions office. And Summit Ridge is ridiculous. They take like 6 to 8 hours to admission people. Not joking. 4 to 8, I'd say. Like, the most I've waited is 8 probably, and the least I've waited is 4. And there's literally blankets in there because people sleep in there. So what the admissions office, the admissions counselor talks to you, the doctor talks to you. They actually have to make a diagnosis then for insurance purposes. So they talk to you, and then you go back to the floor. So adolescent and adult are two different worlds. So I'm going to do adolescent first, and then I'll do adult. And I'm just going to talk about Summit Ridge because that's the one I've been to the most. So, and I don't, I'm just going to do it this way. Okay, so might be a little different, but most of them are the same. When you go to the ward, the floor, there's the adolescent's weird. It's like a nurse's station, a group room, a seclusion room, and then you walk to the other side of the hospital to sleep. The adult is just like one big day room, the nurse's station, and then they have these two hallways, either the men's or women's side, and that's where they sleep. But anyways, so what they'll do is a nurse will assess you and ask you a bunch of questions. They'll do a check, like they'll check to make sure you have nothing on you. And then you go into, and sometimes this can be in the middle of the night, sometimes it can be middle of the day, it just depends. And then you go into the group room. And at the group room, they do groups, either the techs run them, or mental health technicians run them, or the therapists run them, or a combination. Like sometimes, like there's a recreation room where the recreation therapist runs their groups, stuff like that. So you do groups, they do feed you. Of course they feed you in November. Okay, so they give you, you go to the cafeteria for mealtime. COVID was different. The food was decent at Summit Ridge. It's not the best, but it's not bad. I mean, it's good enough, I guess. A psychiatrist will see you within 24 hours. A social worker will see you in 72 hours. When the social worker sees you in the adolescent unit, you have a family meeting time where, and I'm sorry if this video is all over this place. You have a family session, and the adult, I don't think you do. Not in my experience. Okay, so things you can't have. You can't have any electronics, unless you're on long-term, which I'm not even going to go there. You can't have, and you can only have iPods without a camera long-term, but no cell phones, no iPads, no laptops, no MP3 players. You can't have books. You can't have journals. You can't have pencils. They give you these little golf pencils to write with. Can't have pens, except for one hospital we could, but they were like this. They only gave them out during groups, and then you had to put them up, but not Summit Ridge. Can't have pens. Can't have anything in your clothes with any drawstring in it. No hoods, which is a weird rule here in Georgia, because at Summit Ridge, someone tried to walk out with a hood on after the visitation room. The psychiatrist will most likely put you on medication. They'll talk to you about that. Usually the visit with the psychiatrist is pretty brief, like 5 to 10 minutes the first time, and then like 5 minutes. I mean, it's really quick. Sometimes one time they spent an hour with me at another hospital, but Summit Ridge, it's pretty quick. Let's see, what else? There's other patients there. There's usually around 18 to 20 of you guys. In the adult room, I think is more like 30, but the adolescents, like 18 to 20. A nurse is there 24/7. They give you meds. You have a bedtime. You have to wake up. You have to do meals at a certain time. You know, you can't really, in the adolescent, they didn't really let you sleep during the day, but in the adults, I mean, you have to sleep on the floor. Some hospitals leave the door, like Lakeview, they'll leave the doors open during the day so you can sleep during the day, not at Summit Ridge. There is a seclusion room if that's the last resort. I have been there a couple of times. They do have restraints. Again, been in those a couple of times. 1-to-1 or line of sight, let me explain what those are right quick. So 1-to-1 is, I've had this a couple of times also, is when it's one staff to one one patient. And that staff is with you all the time. They watch you eat, they watch you shower, they watch you sleep. They have to be within arm's length of you. Line of sight is just that. It's line of sight. And this is if you really need it. If you're like attempting suicide or suicidal while you're there. Line of sight is you have to put your bed out in the hallway and they have to monitor you. You have to be within their line of sight, if that makes sense. What was I going to address? I forget what I was going to address. Other restrictions. So you can be on unit restriction, you can be on clothing restriction, which means you have to wear a paper gown. Again, all this stuff has happened to me. Restraints, you can only be up to them in Georgia, adolescent for 2 hours, adult for 4 hours. Haven't been restrained as an adult, so can't tell you. Let's see, what else? Oh, the stay is like a week to 2 weeks. And let me think. They have like different groups. They have like coping skills groups. They have groups where you talk about different mental illnesses. They have recreational therapy every day, which is like where you play games or you do art or stuff like that. So yeah, that's pretty much all I can think of. If you guys have any questions, ask them below and I will be sure to answer them. Check out my Linktree, Linktr.we/islandofpsa. Thank you guys. Bye.